Joining us now to analyze the conservative perspective to this situation is Isabel Brown, a contributor for Turning Point USA. So, Isabel, right now Senate Republicans look as if they are going to move forward with confirming President Trump's nominee, whoever it may be. He hasn't made that announcement yet. We are expecting that on Saturday. But do you think that this is the right move for Senate Republicans to try to confirm this judicial appointee before the election?
I absolutely do. And I hear the criticism coming from the left that many are advocating for the American people to, quote unquote, have a voice in this process by waiting until after the upcoming election in November. But the American people have already exercised their voice by electing President Trump into office, who will be president of the United States at least through January of 2021. He absolutely has an obligation to fill the seat to make sure that our Supreme Court is not evenly balanced with 8 votes, with 4 and 4 potentially when it comes to each decision. And I think it's absolutely the right decision for Senate Republicans to confirm the nominee.
And not only did the American people pick President Trump in the 2016 race, but I also think it's worth mentioning that the American people built on the Republican majority in the Senate in 2018, even at a time when Democrats took back the lower chamber. So Senate Republicans have not only the American people had come out and made their decision about them, but they've built on their majority ever since then, of course, coming out of the Kavanaugh confirmation hearing as well. So now we hear House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, with her newfound control after 2018, saying that she's looking to possibly impeach AG Barr or President Trump to delay this whole practice. Does this speak to what exactly Democrats are not only trying to do right now at this very moment, but have been ever since they took control of the lower chamber?
Impeachment certainly has become the rallying cry of the Democrat agenda, especially in Congress. And my biggest concern as an American and as a voter is that impeachment has really become something that's a political tool for partisan gain rather than its intended purpose of removing someone from office that may not be fit to lead. All of a sudden, as soon as you have some sort of partisan disagreement, the rallying cry becomes impeach, impeach, impeach. And that's being used as a tactic to stall any progress from an opposing political party.
And I want to touch on the Kavanaugh confirmation hearing once more, because I think that was an event that really touched a lot of conservatives. And I mean that in the sense where they were almost radicalized to a sense because they saw how unfairly that he was treated. They saw what Democrats were willing to do to derail this man's life, as well with his family's life and his entire career for that matter, based on allegations that maybe shouldn't have been disputed on public TV in front of millions of Americans. I mean, we can talk about that issue, but it just wasn't the right setting at the very least, and based on flawed evidence, to say the least. Do you fear that perhaps this is another type of situation with iconic figures such as Ruth Bader Ginsburg, that the same thing could happen to those on the other side of the aisle, those who are more liberal, seeing what's happening to the Ginsburg seat?
It is absolutely possible, and I'm so glad you brought up what happened to now Justice Kavanaugh. I think it was such an important cultural moment for America because for the first time in our American story, we rallied together from most parts of the political spectrum to see an individual that was no longer innocent until proven guilty, but the opposite. They were guilty until proven innocent, and that was actually said by many sitting Senate Democrats in media interviews, on TV, and print media as well. And we fundamentally changed what it means to have the American judicial system with completely uncorroborated allegations when it came to gang rape, raping individuals in high school, and behavior that was honestly not at all reminiscent of who the individual who was going to be placed on the Supreme Court was. It was such a unique moment for Americans to stop and pause and think, is this who we want to be as a country? Is this how divided we want to be? And I don't think it necessarily just swayed conservative opinion, but American opinion as well. I'm definitely concerned about any sort of uncorroborated allegations that might pop up regardless of who the nominee is. And America needs to remember what happened to Justice Kavanaugh during the confirmation process, because I think we're bound to see that again.
Yeah, unfortunately, I think you're right. I mean, it's become such a politically divisive issue that, I mean, what we saw with the Kavanaugh confirmation, I mean, I don't think you can get much worse than that. But, I mean, we've seen ridiculous things happen so far in 2020, so I don't want to even tease that out into the universe. But before I let you go, too, there was a little bit of an interesting divide happening among conservatives and media. I'll put it that way, because I actually took a poll on this, and 98% of people were against the idea that I'm about to read to you. But it was from David French of The Dispatch, and his whole argument was saying, you know, both sides keep escalating the situation, but maybe this is a time where Senate Republicans should say, you know what, we won't confirm anyone as long as Democrats promise that they won't stack the courts for the next 4 years, possibly 10 years, depending on what the deal is, whoever wins in the election or something like that. But it sparked a big conversation on social media. So I want to get your input on that. Do you think that that is even a plausible agreement proposed by David French?
Absolutely not. And again, going back to what we just talked about with Justice Kavanaugh, Senate Republicans and the President of the United States during this process owe Senate Democrats nothing. We can never let the American people forget what happened with Kavanaugh's confirmation process and likely what's bound to happen with this new nominee. And I want to make sure we take a moment for people who don't understand what court packing actually is. That would be adding more and more and more seats to the Supreme Court based on partisan ideology. That would only increase the opportunity to legislate from the bench rather than just interpret existing law and the United States Constitution, and would fundamentally transform what the judicial system in America looks like. It's a terrible idea and definitely should not be considered by either side of the political spectrum.
Yeah, and in fact, I'll build on that by using Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg's own words, where she said that doing that would only politicize the court even more so if each side got to pick who had the better representation. I mean, it would be something that would go back and forth for years, however long it would last for, but it would completely dilute any objectivity on that bench and make it even more politicized than it is right now. And as soon as you start messing with judges and the Constitution, we can talk about statehood, things of that nature that they're also proposing, that's when things start getting a little bit dangerous. And so that's what I think a lot of Americans are fearful right now, especially the ones who are more constitutionally oriented. But Isabel Brown, I think you're right on the money with your input as usual. I really appreciate you coming on the show tonight. Thank you.